I never imagined a simple morning walk could twist into a full-blown nightmare. But there I was, leash in hand, Max trotting cheerfully beside me, when her scream sliced through the crisp morning air like a blade. "Your dog bit my son." The accusation hit so hard my body froze mid-step. Karen, the HOA president and self-appointed guardian of the neighborhood, stood glaring at me with fire in her eyes. Her son, a small boy with tear-streaked cheeks, hovered a few feet behind her. My mind spun. Max? Bite someone? Impossible. Max was gentle, goofy, the kind of dog who believed every human was a blessing. Yet Karen's voice kept rising, shaking with anger. Or was it fear? "You need to pay for this. Your dog is dangerous." She jabbed a trembling finger at me as neighbors drifted out, pulled by her frantic yelling. In seconds, my peaceful walk had turned into a public trial, and I was suddenly the villain. I tried to speak, tried to explain, but my words were swallowed by her relentless tirade. Max would never, I began, but she cut me off sharply. "Call animal control. Call the police," she barked as she whipped out her phone. While she dialed, I knelt beside Max. His tail was tucked, his whole body trembling with confusion. That's when I noticed tiny bite marks on his fur. Not deep, but enough to sting. Scratches that made no sense. A bizarre thought flickered through my mind. Could Karen's son have actually bitten him? It sounded absurd, but nothing about this scene added up. An instinct told me something was very, very wrong. While we waited for the authorities, I suddenly remembered the CCTV cameras I had installed outside my house. They weren't just for security, they were for peace of mind. And right now, that decision felt like the most important one I'd ever made. I rushed inside, pulled up the footage, and my stomach twisted in disbelief. There it was, Karen's son approaching Max, poking him repeatedly, trying to get a reaction. And then, out of nowhere, he lunged down and sank his teeth into Max's paw. My jaw dropped. The bite Karen was screaming about. It was the exact opposite of what she claimed. I replayed the footage again and again, hoping I was wrong, but there was no mistake. Max hadn't harmed anyone. Karen had flipped the story on its head, maybe to protect her son, maybe to stir chaos. Either way, the truth was captured in high definition. Anger, shock, and absolute clarity surged through me. This wasn't going to be some casual misunderstanding. This was going to explode legally. And now, that undeniable proof. My hands trembled as I sat there, realizing that my quiet morning walk had escalated into a full-on war I never asked for but one couldn't back down from. The truth was on my side, and soon, everyone would see it. After watching the footage, a strange mix of relief and fury washed over me. Relief that Max was innocent, unharmed except for the scratches. Fury that Karen had hurled accusations without a shred of truth. My instinct was to storm over and confront her, but I stopped myself. In the twisted politics of HOA land, confronting her without evidence would only make me look guilty. I needed a plan. I spent the next hour digging through every second of the footage, checking timestamps, zooming in, and enhancing angles. The story was painfully clear. Her son provoking Max, poking him, trying to force a reaction, and Max responding only with fear, whimpering, pulling away, never once acting aggressively. I documented everything, every moment, every angle, every sound, but I knew the footage alone wouldn't be enough. Karen had influence. Neighbors listened to her, and authorities tended to side with whoever shouted first. So I knocked on doors. I spoke to neighbors who'd seen the scene from across the street. Most had been too far away to know what happened, but when I showed them the footage, their faces shifted from confusion to shock. One elderly neighbor, who'd been quietly observing from her porch, shook her head slowly and said, "I've lived here 20 years. Max has never been anything but kind. That boy provoked him." Her words steadied me. I wasn't crazy. The truth was undeniable. Next, I called my attorney and laid everything out: Karen's accusations, Max's injuries, and the damning video. My lawyer didn't hesitate. We needed to file charges immediately. Karen's lies weren't just slanderous. They could have gotten Max taken away. Or worse, euthanized. The thought made rage rise in my throat. This wasn't just about clearing my name. This was about protecting Max from a false narrative that could destroy him. By that afternoon, the legal process was underway. I gathered Max's medical records, organized witness statements, and submitted the CCTV footage to law enforcement. Each step felt like steadying my shield, building a wall of truth around Max. But with every form signed, I felt the tension thickening. Karen wasn't going to stay quiet. She never did. She thrived on control and manipulation, and I could feel the storm she was preparing. But with the truth in my hands, I felt something powerful rise inside me. This fight wasn't just about a bite. It was about integrity, about standing firm when someone tries to twist reality for their own gain. And as I prepared for the inevitable showdown, one thing became crystal clear. Karen's lies would not define the story. Max and I had the truth. And truth, when exposed, has a way of winning. The day the charges were officially filed against Karen and her son felt almost unreal. I woke up with a strange blend of dread and determination humming beneath my skin. I knew this wasn't going to be some neat, straightforward case that ended quietly. Karen's influence in the HOA and her natural talent for twisting narratives meant I was walking straight into a battle, one where justice mattered just as much as public perception. When I arrived at the police station, I came armed with everything. The enhanced CCTV footage, the witness statements, the medical report showing Max's minor injuries, and a meticulously written timeline of every detail. The officers examined everything with a mix of curiosity and cautious skepticism. And of course, Karen was already there, filing counterclaims, standing stiffly with that sharp, piercing voice of hers. She tried to twist the narrative again, insisting her only concern had been protecting her son from my aggressive dog. I kept my cool. Losing my temper would have been a gift to her. Instead, I let the truth speak for itself. We watched the footage frame by frame, slowed down, zoomed in. I explained each moment, her son approaching Max, poking him repeatedly, and finally biting his paw. Every replay felt like another nail sealing the coffin of her lies. I saw the officers glance at one another, their expressions shifting from polite neutrality to stunned disbelief. Karen's confident mask began to fracture, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw genuine fear flicker in her eyes. After hours of back and forth, the authorities announced what I already knew inside. The charges against me held no weight. Instead, the focus pivoted toward Karen and her son. Filing a false police report, provocation, minor assault on an animal. It sounded formal and clinical, but to me, it was everything. It was validation. It was justice. It was Max finally being seen as the victim he truly was. But this wasn't the end, not by a long shot. Karen wasn't someone who accepted being wrong, especially not publicly. I could already imagine the fallout. The gossip slipping between doorsteps, the sideways glances, the passive-aggressive HOA notes taped to my door, the whispered attempts to smear my name. All of it was coming, but strangely, I felt calm. I had the truth. I had the evidence. I had the law. For once, it didn't feel like I was just defending Max. I was defending fairness, my peace, my right to live without intimidation. Walking out of the station that day with Max trotting proudly beside me, I realized something profound. Fighting liars is draining, but victory, real victory, is beautifully, unbelievably sweet when it's rooted in truth. The neighborhood would never look at us the same again, and Karen would finally face consequences she could not control. In the days that followed, life felt like it was moving in slow motion. The neighborhood brimmed with whispers. Some neighbors stared at me with curiosity, others with doubt, and a few with thinly veiled suspicion. Karen, unsurprisingly, doubled down. The HOA bulletin board suddenly sprouted notes dripping with passive-aggressive innuendo. Rumors floated around like dust in the sunlight. But under all that noise, I carried a quiet strength. I knew the truth, and that knowledge was grounding. I spent the week preparing for the HOA hearing and the possible court proceedings. Every detail mattered: the footage, the statements, Max's medical documentation, even the messages I'd exchanged with worried neighbors. My attorney reviewed everything with me, piece by piece, emphasizing how airtight the evidence was. Watching Max curled up peacefully beside me that evening, I understood that this fight had grown into something bigger than a dog and a child. It had become a stand against lies, manipulation, and intimidation. The hearing day arrived with heavy tension. Karen walked into the room with her usual air of superiority, her son trailing behind her with visible discomfort. She tried again to twist the narrative, blending selective facts with emotional theatrics. But when it came time for the evidence, everything she'd built crumbled instantly. I played the footage. I narrated each moment calmly. The witnesses spoke clearly. Their stories matched perfectly. Max had been provoked. The so-called bite was entirely fabricated. Karen's composure cracked as the truth unfolded with no room left for manipulation. The HOA board and legal representatives reviewed all the material meticulously. And then came the verdict, a final, definitive blow. Every accusation made against me was dismissed. Karen was formally reprimanded for filing a fraudulent report. Her son's behavior was documented, and the board issued guidance to prevent further incidents. A wave of relief washed over me. It wasn't just the satisfaction of being right. It was the knowledge that Max was finally safe. That honesty had triumphed. That lies, no matter how loudly someone shouts them, still cannot stand against the ironclad truth. Walking out of that building with Max at my side, the air felt lighter. Neighbors who had once whispered now approached with apologies and support. Max wagged his tail proudly, blissfully unaware of how close he had come to danger, only sensing that we had won. And I realized something meaningful: staying calm, trusting the evidence, and standing your ground in the face of deception isn't just the key to winning battles like this. It's a lesson for life. In the end, truth did what truth always does. It prevailed. Max and I returned home as quiet champions, our bond stronger than ever. Karen lost her battle of lies, and the neighborhood learned a harsh but necessary lesson. Loud accusations crumble fast when confronted with real proof. And Max? He got extra treats that night, not just for being the sweetest dog on earth, but for being the innocent hero at the heart of our story. Wow, what a ride, right? Max proved his innocence, and the truth conquered everything. But now I want to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with someone like Karen? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if you love real-life dramas, neighborhood chaos, and unbelievable stories like this, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next.